Joe. Let's go. Let's Joe Rexrode. What's up, Snot Road? Oh, God. They'll make a mention. Also, I ain't no bitch, but I might try on my last Friday. We'll see what happens. You'll be here for it, too. Yeah. We'll see.
And welcome into the Friday edition, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keys are here with you on this Friday.
Yeah, butter.
Speaking of First Horizon, that's where I'm at. I'm out at First Horizon Park. It is opening day for the Nashville Sounds, baby. Baseball season in the MLB underway yesterday, and Sounds get rolling today. And you can tune in to 91.9 The Fan today as the Sounds are taking on Jacksonville. We'll have your pregame starting at 6:20. First pitch is at 6:35. You can also find coverage on the Game Nashville app, GameNashville.com. Sounds baseball on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks and Family Leisure. Joe, as you well know, it's hard to find a much better view in all of minor league baseball, really all of baseball. In the one First Horizon Park with a nice backdrop.
It is pretty cool.
Skyline,
Yeah.
Background. It feels like baseball out here, Joe. It's good to be here.
Yeah. Sorry I'm not there. Say hi to everybody for me. I don't want to give everybody my
Here's his view.
scurry or whatever we've got
Well,
going
it's
there.
one of the broadcast networks. That's cool.
Yeah, it's
You're an absolute
Big.
soldier for powering through.
pretty exciting. Yeah, whatever, man. I mean, who doesn't want to listen to the radio and hear my snot rockets flying around the room?
Joe, your well wishes on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Geezer, how we doing? What's going on?
I'm doing great, but the snot rod's a little bit under the weather, you know?
Snot rod, there we go. Yeah, snot road, snot rod. Yeah, okay. Thanks for doing.
6:02 in the morning. Geezer's already throwing out some bangers.
I get the chirps, bro.
This is the time for it, I mean, if I would come out there today, it just would have been a big cluster fart, and we don't need that.
I love that you have now brought back a new word. Not only that, but it is with basketball, and you are replacing it for a great way of me. I know at Fred's, Robby, and some others are like, "Geezer, watch your mouth." But, apparently I'm bad.
Language problem.
It's a great influence to hear fart instead of the other words.
Yeah, well, learn from Hubert Davis. Let him be your guy.
We all should. We got a lot to get into on the program today. Jared Stillman will be with us at 7 o'clock.
Will he?
We'll
Guess
get
we'll
into
find
a
out.
long week of yelling. We're still here on the program. With them, my buddy Chris Jones from Nashville Sounds will be with us at 7:30. We'll get his thoughts on the opening day of the season today and some things that you can look forward to at First Horizon Park coming up this year with the Sounds. Looking forward to that. Hard to believe this is 10 years of First Horizon Park. Now, as a guy who grew up in Greer Stadium and one of those games, it's hard to believe it's been here for 10 years. We'll get into that with Chris Jones a little bit later in the show. And of course, Ron Davenport, TV at 8 o'clock. We'll be with us. We'll get into all things Titans. Joe, speaking of the Titans, I do have to say, I saw some news yesterday that made me shake my head. Now, others I'm sure will love it. I think you probably like it more than I do. But the Titans have decided, number one, Joe, that they're moving to these light blue jerseys as their permanent home jerseys here. So the navy blue jersey is essentially going by the wayside here. And number two, we're not going to see one of those Oilers throwbacks next year. So if you had the idea that you're going to see Cam Ward in an Oilers throwback jersey next year.
Wow.
You can pretty much count that one out now at this point. But I've said this before. A lot of Titans fans have reached out to me after I've said this. Some agree, some passionately disagree, and that's fine. I hate the Titans jerseys. I think they have some of the worst jerseys in the NFL. I think they went the other way when they got these new jerseys compared to what they used to have here. And then we talked about this, when you see those Houston Oilers throwbacks and look how awesome they are and how much pretty much everybody loves them. So man, you could have something like that. I don't love the Titans jerseys. I really don't like this decision to move to the light blue jerseys. Is it the end of the world at the end of the day? No, it's not. But I saw it yesterday and was bummed out, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, I have a dissenting opinion. But here's what I don't.
Yes, I got rid of that
is-
stupid talking.
Because I absolutely like the light blue way more than navy. But, and I'm with you on the Oilers uniforms, for sure. I think those are some of the most awesome uniforms, and I think they should do it. But I guess my question is, if you like the Oilers uniform so much, this is at least basically the same color, so why wouldn't you at least like these more than like the navy?
I think the entire Titans uniform setup right now, I think some of it's pop that they're using with the numbers. I think the entire setup right now is wrong. I don't like the blue helmets. I don't like the font on the jersey numbers.
I don't like them. That's my answer for you. I hear what you're saying. It doesn't make any sense that I like the Houston Oilers blue, and then they've switched to light blue jerseys full time, and I don't like it. I think it's just the entire uniform setup that they currently have that I just don't like. I think they need to redo this thing, get some new uniforms in here, go back to the old ones. One of the two. I heard TD and Jared talking yesterday. They had this red jersey in the early 2000s floating around that they'd never actually wore in a football game, but they sold, that everyone loves. Like those jerseys are awesome. And the fact that they never wore those in an actual game irritates me. I'd settle for that. Go wear that.
Yeah. I feel like I remember that.
Yeah.
Which is weird.
You can still people will still be wearing those at the game. Like if you've been a Titans fan, you're an OG Titans fan, the alternate red, you can still find those walking around Nissan Stadium. A lot of them are like Eddie George jerseys, but yeah, you can find them.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that the uniforms are great. I still think though that, I personally really like the light blue jersey and the navy pants together. And I did not like the old, the two-tone jerseys that they had before. I don't like those. But
now we've got gray in there, and I'm like, okay, well, why do we have gray in there? Like the whole thing, the whole setup now just kind of irritates me a little bit. I understand like the two-tone stuff. A lot of people don't like that, so I'm with you. And I think you are probably more representative than I am of the way people feel about the jerseys around here, because I think a lot of people's favorite combo is the light blue with the navy pants. Every time I see that, it makes me want to harm myself. So I don't like it when they wear those. But I think if you polled people, number one, okay, I'll put it this way. I think if you polled Titans fans with their current uniform setup, the number one look is probably like the Stormtrooper all white look, because everybody has that and it's clean. So I think a lot of people like that. Number two, I think you're probably right, would be the light blue jersey with the navy pants that a lot of people love. I can't do it.
Yeah. Well, I know it's also, in fact, I haven't read this yet, but I knew that we have been. It's interesting timing this week because the Titans put out this press release yesterday, right, on all this, and a lot of reaction to it. Meanwhile, we've had coming a story about this fight about the uniforms between kind of like the Titans and Houston. So I haven't read it yet, but it's interesting that it's sort of like this week that was coming out. Now the Titans have done this, and it's interesting that they're not wearing the Oilers uniforms anymore. I mean, they wore it twice 2 years ago.
Isn't that kind of enough reason to wear it by itself? Like the fact that it irritates the Texans so much, or at least their fan base so much, like to me, that's reason enough to wear them at least once every year. Is just to remind them that, hey, yeah, these are our jerseys, and we're very happy that this irritates you. Like I'd wear it against the Texans every year.
Yeah. Right. So apparently, I guess calling this Titans blue is because it is the same blue. It's the blue it's Columbia blue, I guess technically, right? Like that's the official blue that it is. But now this press release called it Titans blue. But yeah, I mean, to me, it's like if you're either give them up or go ahead and keep wearing them.
Yeah, Stilly called them and I'm kind of with Stilly on this. Like nobody calls it Titans blue. I don't know if we're going to try to make that a thing now. I don't know that I've ever heard a person.
The Titans want to
say
make it a thing now.
Titans blue.
Yes.
Yeah, like I don't think I've ever heard one human tell me that thing is Titans blue. So look, if you're trying to make that a thing now, good for you. We'll see what that looks like. But I've not heard anyone use that phrase, and I've lived here my entire life.
Yeah, so I'm starting to read this thing. There's some. The Texans call it H-Town blue, so it's Titans blue here, and for them it's H-Town blue. So there you go.
That's even dumber. I mean, it's just crazy. So, hey, look, we'll see what it looks like this year. I think the main reaction, most people are not all that disappointed, just at least based on what I saw, Joe. Most people were not all that disappointed that they're switching to the light blue. A lot of people's frustration from the announcement yesterday comes from not wearing the Oiler throwbacks. Like the Oiler throwbacks, it's something to look forward to every year because football haven't given you a whole lot lately. At least the jerseys have.
Exactly. And I mean, look, it ticks a lot of people off. Not just, I mean, it really like around the league, there's a fair amount of contempt for the idea. And I don't know. I mean,
I don't understand it.
Yeah, like I understand it was identified with Houston, with the Oilers with Houston. But again, like, I mean, that's what happens. Those people own teams, they take everything, they take it all.
It seems to be really difficult for some people to understand that this is the same franchise, right? Like the franchise owns this. So when they can do whatever they want to with it, it does not belong to the city of Houston. That seems to be a really difficult thing for people to grasp around the league.
Like when the Rams were in St. Louis, they wore the Rams uniforms.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't change the
crazy
name,
how that works.
but still they were in St. Louis wearing Rams uniforms. Yeah. And then when they were in St. Louis before, they wore Cardinals uniforms, and then they went to Arizona and they wore Cardinals uniforms because that's that franchise.
Yeah, it's crazy how that works. It's just it's welcome to sports. 615-737-1025, our phone number. 615-737-1025. We're off and running today here on Robby and Rexrode, live out at First Horizon Park for opening day with the Nashville Sounds. We get a lot more to get into on that front as we go throughout the show as well. Coming up next, is there concern growing for what we think is going to be a high pick in the NFL draft? We'll get into that coming up. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Keezer back at the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Joe, is there some concern growing for what we all believe is going to be one of the top picks of the NFL draft? And that, of course, is Abdul Carter. Now, Abdul Carter did not work out at the NFL Combine because of the rehab of the shoulder injury that he had. And, of course, at the NFL Combine, one of the big hot topics was his foot and the stress reaction that was discovered in Abdul Carter's medical. Now, he didn't work out at the Combine, and Drew Rosenhaus, his agent, put out a statement shortly after that. It was like, don't worry, he's got his pro day coming up. He'll be ready to go. He'll work out at his pro day, all those things. Well, Schefter put this out there yesterday, Joe, that Carter is not working out at Penn State's pro day, which is today, per his agent, Drew Rosenhaus. He's still this is the quote from Rosenhaus, quote, he's still finishing up rehab on the shoulder injury he had from the Boise State game. He may still do a workout for teams sometime in mid-April. That was the quote that Drew Rosenhaus had that Adam Schefter put out there yesterday. So, Joe, I ask you, when you're looking at this whole situation here on the Abdul Carter front, how much concern would you have based on the shoulder injury, based on the stress reaction in the foot? How it looks like he was originally supposed to participate in the pro day, and now all of a sudden he's not. Is there concern building on that front for you?
I mean, you have to raise your eyebrow, and this is a great example of why you don't make a promise like that, because that's now it looks worse. If you just keep it open, like, he's rehabbing and he'll do what he can do when he can do it. Okay. But when you're declaring that he's going to, do his pro day and then he can't do his pro day. Okay. Well, what happened? Something else happened. Is it worse than you thought? Which injury, the shoulder injury, from what my understanding is, just your garden variety shoulder injury. Right. I mean, the concern would be, the stress reaction and whether, that's obviously how close is it becoming a stress fracture and all that stuff. I mean, if you're a team, and I said it before, like, usually these things, I mean, if he was a 320-pound lineman, it's a little more concerning because, it's just such pounding on the foot. I mean, usually these things are fine for football players. I can't think of too many examples of, there are some examples of basketball players I know, where they can't get over this stuff. And, like college basketball players that I can recall, a guy named Jeremy Langford a few years ago just couldn't stop having them and basically had to stop playing. Football, a little different, but I mean, it's I think it's an unnecessary, like, raising of the red flag just because you made this promise about him, but if I'm a team, certainly I'm really thinking about taking him. I don't think I would be deterred, but I would also be all over every little bit of medical information I could get. I mean, you have to have a little bit of concern.
Yeah, like, it's the shoulder. I'm with you. I don't know that I'm overly worried about that. And I did find it interesting that Rosenhaus, like, just let off. He's like, this is a shoulder injury. Like, he's still rehabbing the shoulder injury from the Boise game. The stress reaction is it's a weird thing because it hasn't done anything to it yet, right? Like, it's not a broken foot, but you're just concerned that it ultimately will be. So it's not like he can't move around on the foot right now. I guess what you have to determine if you're an NFL team looking at all this is what's the risk versus the reward. I think we have a good idea of what the reward can be with him. I mean, if you watched him play last year, Abdul Carter is an absolute monster out there. And, there's all this talk, all this momentum about him going to Cleveland at number 2 and, trying to imagine him lined up on one side and, Myles Garrett on the other side is a terrifying thing for other quarterbacks out there. But, like, I do wonder if it's the Browns or anyone else, when you're looking at the medical here, is there any sort of hesitancy to go ahead and pull the trigger on him high in the draft because of the injury concern, more specifically to the foot? Like, do we think this could actually be a situation where he could slide down farther than we think? Or is this at the end of the day just going to be as simple as, well, Abdul Carter's going at number 2 or number 3 or whenever the quarterbacks stop going, and he's going to be either the first guy that's not a quarterback that's taken or the second guy that's not a quarterback that's taken, and then you live with that risk later on.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like different teams obviously have different standards for this, as we know. We know in Nashville, some teams, have a too low of a standard, but I could see there being some teams who are like, this is just too much. If he falls out of the top 5, I'll be shocked, absolutely shocked. Again, unless there's more to this. Now, the Rosenhaus part of this, obviously he makes it clear it's the shoulder, and that is weird because it's like, well, you guys knew the timeline on the shoulder, and
Right.
if you knew it was even close, why would you say that he's going to do his pro day? I mean, that when they talked about that, it was about the foot. So now it's the shoulder. And how would the shoulder be like re-injured or the timeline change on it? So then it makes you think Rosenhaus is lying and it's actually the foot.
Yeah.
So then, okay, so is that worse than you thought? Has it become a stress fracture? Et cetera, et cetera. I mean, again, any team that's serious about this is going to, I'm sure, do everything, have them in and then just sort of like throw them into a, MRI and, hey, why don't you sit here? We'll take some x-rays and, let me here. You want a foot rub? Let me see how your foot's feeling there, buddy. But I'll be shocked if the information we have, if this makes him fall out of the top 5.
Well, I know Titans fans largely have now moved off the Abdul Carter thing, and I understand why with the need at quarterback and it looking like Cam Ward's going there. Now, having said that, we did talk to Charles yesterday, Joe, and I think he left the door open for a move back up to number 1 overall, maybe a little bit wider than a lot of Titans fans have it right now. So, like, if they did trade back, and let's say they traded back with New York, and Cam Ward goes at 1, and Cleveland takes Shedeur at number 2, well, then you're either, I guess, reaching high on Jackson Dart, or you're going with one of these guys, and Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter after that. And I know that you would go Travis Hunter. I would probably go Travis Hunter as well. But like Abdul Carter, if the Titans do indeed trade back, he's going to be an option. So I know a lot of Titans fans have kind of moved on from Carter here, but it could still conceivably affect the Titans here, even though we all don't think that that's likely that it's going to be anybody but Cam Ward.
Yeah. I mean, the Brown stuff is interesting a lot. There's some people who picked up on our interview yesterday. Someone said something called Robby and Rexrode.
Yeah. Like we're some sort of zoo animal. Yeah.
But, look, the Brown stuff is interesting. And what if they absolutely just decide to like give the world for one spot up? Then you'd be sitting there as the Titans. You could take Shedeur. Yep. But then all of a sudden this would be on the menu of possibilities. And of course, then we'd be talking next year about, some interesting football at the quarterback position with the Tennessee Titans. But I'm just saying,
bring me Tim Boyle.
Man, great guy. Is my understanding. Great guy, great culture guy.
By the way, speaking of the Browns, did you see that Kirk Cousins was apparently like some Chipotle close to the Cleveland area and took a picture, and like people were freaking out? And then Ian Rappaport tweeted about it yesterday, and he's like, it's not NFL related, by the way, but it is a solid lunch choice, talking about Kirk Cousins at the Chipotle.
Oh, did Rappaport also make any more comments about Dunkin' Donuts and stuff?
I don't think so. I think he's okay. I think he's learned he better leave that one alone. Now, in fairness to him, like I think Jordan Schultz may quickly turn his attention to Gaharski if Gaharski keeps tweeting him every other day. So there's that.
Yeah, does Gaharski not realize that this guy actually goes out there and physically, like gets in people's faces?
I mean, I think Gaharski might welcome that.
Well, I know he invites it, and then it's like, but dude, if that happened, you'd be ripped apart like a stewed chicken. Have you looked at yourself?
615-737-1025 is our phone number. We're out here live at First Horizon Park, opening day for the Nashville Sounds. going to be a great night tonight. I mean, you can't ask for better weather than what it's looking like today. So opening day coming up tonight between the Sounds and the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp. We'll have Chris Jones from the Nashville Sounds joining us a little bit later in the program. Coming up next, we'll get into a little March Madness discussion, a huge one coming up between Tennessee and Kentucky tonight. We'll get your thoughts on that matchup as well. 615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, the game. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keys are here with you. I'm out here live at First Horizon Park. Sounds opening up their season today. Taking on the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp, one of the great names in sports. We'll have Chris Jones from the Nashville Sounds a little bit later in the program. Chris Jones also was a groomsman in my wedding. So may get into that a little bit later in the show too, Joe.
Yeah, let's get some
dangerous
recap.
Yeah.
Maybe get some picks, some play-by-play. I think that'd be good for the people.
I'm just glad Alabama won last night for his sake. Otherwise, he'd be depressed today on the show. So Alabama, did they miss a shot last night against BYU? I mean, it was pretty unbelievable what they were able to do. Florida punches their ticket as well. You almost had 3 SEC teams advance last night, Joe. Arkansas loses a heartbreaker, 85-83 in overtime, and also Duke taking down Arizona last night. So the first part of the Sweet 16 has come and gone, and Florida and Alabama both advancing from the SEC, which sets up Kentucky and Tennessee tonight. Big one between Michigan and Auburn tonight as well. Ole Miss, Michigan State. So still lots going for the SEC at this part of the tournament. Joe, real quickly before we get into Kentucky and Tennessee specifically, what did you make of last night's action in the tournament?
Yeah, well, Alabama, as we talked about, Alabama BYU was going to be just up and down, and it was, but just Alabama eventually. I mean, I've never seen a shooting performance like that in a college game. Record-breaking. Mark Sears hits 10 threes. You know, it's awesome for them. It's just also like now they play Duke. I mean, man, if you could take like 5 or 6 of those and transfer those to Saturday, like it's almost, if I've ever watched basketball in my life, they're going to miss like their first 9 threes against Duke, you know, like it's like guaranteed, but it was something to behold. And so, you know, Final Four last year, they're in the Elite Eight this year. And I mean, if they're going to shoot like that and they got a rebound, I mean, they absolutely can beat Duke. I mean, that game could be a lot of fun. Yeah, it's a killer for Cal. I mean, they're up 13 with 4.5 minutes left over Texas Tech, and they blow it.
Yep.
So still a good run to get to the Sweet 16. But I tell you what, you talk about Kentucky fans. You think about, first of all, there's already the pressure of, you know, you're trying to beat Tennessee for a third time tonight and all that stuff, and the hugeness of this game. But also, if you knew that Cal had gotten to the Elite Eight, and it's possible that he was going to be sitting there in the Elite Eight, and you weren't going to be sitting there in the Elite Eight. I mean, at least from the fan perspective, you know, maybe not the team or you know, Mark Pope, but from the fan perspective, that's a weight lifted off your shoulders to be like, okay, get Cal out of here. I cannot deal with Cal's first year, him going, you know, farther in the tournament than we go. Yeah,
I mean, you're exactly right about that. So it is Kentucky and Tennessee tonight in the Sweet 16, and an opportunity for Tennessee to advance to another Elite Eight here. So let's just start there, Joe. I mean, obviously the magnitude of this game, you go back through the history of Tennessee men's basketball, and there's just not a whole lot of opportunities that they've had to win and get in the Elite Eight. So there's that by itself, getting to another Elite Eight and the accomplishment that would be if Tennessee is able to get it done tonight. And then you also throw in the fact, Joe, that it's Kentucky and it's your biggest rival in basketball. I mean, I think pretty clearly, to me anyway, if they get this win tonight, it's the biggest win in program history. Do you agree with that? How do you view the stakes, the magnitude of this game for the Vols tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, they've won twice in their history. They've won a Sweet 16 game.
Yep. Bruce
Pearl won one. And that was, I think, that was huge. That was against Ohio State, I think, in 2010. And that was a big upset. And then they lost to Michigan State in the Elite Eight, but which I covered because I'm old. And I didn't know Wes back then, but I know Wes was there tweeting on Press Row.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Wes was out there tweeting on Press Row. But there's that, and then there's Creighton last year, which is, I mean, when it comes down to it, you know, you got huge wins, you know, in the regular season, huge, you know, whatever, winning the SEC tournament. But I mean, what's bigger, you know, than winning in this tournament, deep in this tournament? Well, they've done that twice. Well, if those are the two biggest wins, then this is the same level of win, except it's against freaking Kentucky. I mean, exactly. I don't think there's much question. And look, they've had a lot of success. Rick Barnes had a lot of success against Kentucky. So they've kind of, they've changed that. I mean, look, a lot of programs in this league, it's like, oh, every once in a while we'll get Kentucky at home, that hasn't been Tennessee and Rick Barnes the last few years. They've beat them in their house. They beat them at home. They beat them in neutral site. So there is that. They're on more equal footing in the recent era, and frankly, they've done more in the NCAA tournament under Rick Barnes. I mean, again, Cal hadn't gotten to the second weekend since 19. Rick Barnes has been there at least three times, since then. So although those things are true, but then you also lost twice to them this year, and this would be getting beat three times by them.
Yeah, that would be the tough part. Like if, we've talked about this heading into the matchup, it's very difficult to beat a team three times in a year, particularly if you're, even matched, or you can make the argument, by the numbers, Tennessee's better than Kentucky is. So it's difficult to beat a team three times. Having said that, sometimes you just match up well against the team, right? Like Kentucky has played very well against Tennessee in those two matchups. Now, we've talked earlier this week about some of the deficiencies that Tennessee had in those matchups and how it looks like they're tracking a little bit differently on that front right now. But I think I've seen a lot of just assuming out there that Tennessee is going to win this game, Joe, for no other reason than that people just keep bringing up, well, it's hard to beat them three times. I agree. It's hard to beat them three times, but that does not guarantee a thing for the Vols tonight.
Yeah, it happens. Speaking of, Michigan State, and speaking of like basketball, that's like not fun to watch. In the 1999-2000 season, 25 years ago, I had to cover 4 Michigan State Wisconsin games. Dick Bennett, the coach of Wisconsin, super nice guy, the most awful basketball you'll ever watch. We've talked about it. The Bennetts, Well, so they beat them both times in the regular season. They beat them in the Big Ten tournament semifinals. They beat them in the freaking Final Four. It was like, are you kidding me that in the Final Four I have to watch Michigan State, and it was like, 56-51, or just awful,
Gross.
awful. But I mean, there's 4. There's 4 right there. Sometimes Michigan State was just flat out better. I don't think Kentucky is flat out better than Tennessee. Also, Jackson Robinson killed Tennessee in one of those games. He's not playing. But yeah, I mean, I think you look at the shots Kentucky got in those games and their offense, and this is like playing a totally different style than when you're playing against John Calipari. It has worked against this defense. I expect Tennessee to have much better answers tonight for that offense. And obviously it starts with, everything starts with Ziegler and Meshack, causing havoc and just really setting the tone out there. But I mean, Kobe Brea is as dangerous a guy as there is in college basketball. You cannot let him breathe. You must chase him off the line. You must make him put on the floor. And he got looks and hit them both games against Tennessee.
He did. 615-737-1025. Our phone number. Tennessee and Kentucky coming up tonight in the Sweet 16. We'll take your thoughts on that matchup. Is tonight the night the Vols get it done against Kentucky and advance to the Elite Eight yet again? We'll have more on that next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. NCAA men's basketball tournament. Our updates presented by Toyota. Feel your adrenaline at Toyota.com. Toyota, let's go places. Also brought to you by thenewcumberland.com, Twin Peaks, and Bet365. We're taking your thoughts on Tennessee and Kentucky on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. So, Joe, as you look at this matchup, if Tennessee is going to win tonight, what has to go right? What do they need to really hone in on tonight to take down Kentucky and avoid being swept by Kentucky this year and losing all three matchups?
Yeah, I mean, I think you start with Brea. You just can't let him breathe. You just gotta, like, Ziegler needs to lock up Lamont Butler and do a great job on him. Again, Kentucky makes it tough. They got this 5-out offense, and Amari Williams is a really interesting player. He's hurt Tennessee in these matchups too. He's one of those. We talked with Ben McKee earlier this week about sort of, he's not really. He's a 4. Sometimes they play him at the 5 in smaller lineups, but not a great matchup for Felix Okpara. But then he can, not necessarily a great one for Igor Milicic either. I just wonder, like, if Cade Phillips is a guy who gets maybe more minutes than normal in this game, because I feel like he might be the best matchup for him. But look, if Tennessee, I said the stat earlier this week, those 3 guards who have shot very well in Lexington, by the way, last weekend, they were 6 for 42 from 3. Ziegler, Gainey, and Chaz Lanier, 6 for 42 combined in those 2 games against Kentucky. Just brutal. Each of them had one game in particular that was just like a nightmare shooting game. I mean, are you gonna have anything close to that? If so, then they're gonna lose a third game to Kentucky. But if they kind of regress to the mean a little bit and at least have even split the difference between last weekend and the 2 games against Kentucky, I mean, I like their chances. Frankly, I like Tennessee's chances. And beyond that, Robby, Houston is really good.
Yep.
I think Houston's going to beat Purdue tonight, even though it's in Indianapolis. I think Houston's going to win that game. At Tennessee, I really feel like this could be it. And then on Monday morning, we could be talking about the first Final Four in school history. And I know now I'm looking past, this massive game against Kentucky, but it's going to be tough. And so is if they make it to Sunday, that will also be tough. But I just think this is an opportunity. 2 years ago, I mean, they don't have Ziegler. I mean, obviously it was disappointing to lose a Florida Atlantic, but they don't have Ziegler. And Florida Atlantic, as we can see now, that was actually a really, really talented team.
Yep.
Last year, Purdue and Detroit, they almost did it, but that was asking a lot between the crowd and Edey and whatever you think of the officiating with Edey and all that stuff. But I think this is it has built to this, and I really think that, and with Ziegler as a senior, this could be the one, folks.
So here's my take on this, and you tell me if you think I'm crazy. I realize this is Kentucky basketball, and the expectation every year for Kentucky basketball is to compete for and ultimately win championships. And if they get bounced tonight in the Sweet 16, that, very few Kentucky fans are going to be just running around here saying, yay, what a great year. It's awesome, all that stuff. But it is Mark Pope's first year, and I do think that there's been some long stretches of play that they've had that are maybe a little bit better than Kentucky fans thought it would be heading into this year. And in his first year, getting to the Sweet 16 and then getting bounced by Tennessee, obviously they would hate it. And you're losing to your rival there and getting bounced in the postseason there. I think more's on the line for Tennessee tonight. I think this is Zakai Ziegler's, kind of swan song at Tennessee here. You've got all this buildup. You've got all this success that Rick Barnes has had that you're waiting to pay off for you when the tournament comes around and finally break down the door and get to the Final Four. It's crazy to say this given the history of both programs, Joe. I realize that. I think a lot more is on the line for Tennessee tonight than is Kentucky. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's it's a really interesting question. I can't sit here. I think you've laid it out there pretty well. I mean, look, it is Kentucky, but like you said, this is an overachieving season. It's the first season. They haven't. I mean, look, that the program has not been, like I said, Cal got them to the second weekend in 2019. Hasn't happened since then. That's a drought at Kentucky. But yeah, this is Tennessee building to this team, even though they lost, their first round pick last year. You still have these seniors who have been such the DNA of the program. So yeah, I think that it's a fair point. Now I still also think it's just like there's still like the fan base, the history and the fan base sort of general expectations come into that. You know what I mean? So I think you could argue both sides of it. Just that it's Kentucky,
Right.
and just that like this is everything revolves around this program for that fan base and that state. Whereas, it's still here. Everything still revolves around Tennessee football, and they hope football is good up there, and here it has to be. So from that perspective, it's just a different mindset for fans. I mean, I'm sorry, but like I'm still seeing too many Tennessee fans who don't seem to understand like what their program has been and what Rick Barnes has made it. But I think from the team perspective, I think you're dead on. I mean, in recent performance and just in the expectations for these two teams going into the year, I can't argue with what you're saying.
Well, I think a couple of things are true. I think, Rick Barnes is unquestionably the greatest coach in the history of this program. He's had more success than anybody in this program, and all those things are true. I also think, like, at some point, Joe, like, it's a shame if that eventually doesn't translate into at least a run to the Final Four. Like, you've got to find a way to capture all of this success that you've had in the regular season and the success that you've had in the SEC tournaments over the years, and being high seeds heading into the tournament. Eventually, you got to parlay that into a run to the Final Four. And when we talked last week about Ziegler specifically, like if they do this and they beat Kentucky tonight, and then ultimately they do get to the Final Four, I mean, we're going to be talking about him and Tennessee basketball. I mean, we already are, but we're talking about him in Tennessee basketball lore, and you're going to be talking about him as one of the greats, if not the greatest Tennessee basketball player of all time, just in terms of pure what he meant to the program, what they accomplished with him at the helm. So I think from that standpoint, there's a lot on the line. And, with all the success they've had, at some point you've got to finish that off and get to at least the Final Four. And then, you worry about the national championship after that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, 3 straight Sweet 16s for Tennessee basketball. I mean, that's that means something. An Elite Eight in there, 4 Sweet 16s overall to Rick Barnes. I mean, like these are good.
It's uncharted territory
in large part, and even for him, like after Texas, he's kind of changed that, but it's still the one Final Four.
Right?
And so, yeah, and this is an opportunity. I mean, again, Houston's really good. I mean, I watching Duke last night. I mean, again, watching Florida, what they did to Maryland, they figured it out after UConn pushed them. I still feel like this is one of the, I mean, maybe Auburn would be the ideal. I mean, Tennessee just beat them, but other than that, I'd rather have Houston as my one than the other two teams I just mentioned. So I mean, it's if that game happens, if they win tonight and that game happens, it would be. I mean, you're talking about maybe the 2 best defensive teams in college basketball. I mean, an absolute battle. But no, there's a real chance. And I also, I mean, I would think that Tennessee fans would be pretty strong in Indy.
Oh, I would think so too. Yeah, I would think so too. Cam says Ziegler can't get into foul trouble. Got to rebound well, run him off the line, and we'll be fine. Ryan in Florida says, I'm a Vol fan, but I'm scared. And 99 people said the Titans couldn't beat Jacksonville 3 times. And they did. But tonight, we all bleed orange. This from Ryan in Florida. We'll find out. We'll get into this and more with Jared Stillman coming up next. Get his thoughts on Tennessee and Kentucky. Get his thoughts on a whole bunch of Titans news throughout the week as well. That's coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keys are here with you. I'm live at First Horizon Park, where the Nashville Sounds open up their season today against Jacksonville. First pitch is 6:35 tonight, and we'll also have your coverage on 94.9 The Fan today as well. So Sounds opening things up. And it sure is a nice day to be at the ballpark. We'll have Chris Jones from the Nashville Sounds a little bit later this hour on the program. We welcome in our friend Jared Stillman to the program, as we do every Friday morning at 7 o'clock. Stilly, good morning. How are you?
I'm outstanding. Robby, I got to tell you something. As somebody that has a child, I don't know how you do this, how you cover these Preds games and stay up until midnight and maybe later than that, then get your tush to work at 6 o'clock in the morning, and which means you're waking up even early. I have so much more respect for you now. I just want you to know that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It will probably result in my early death, but we're gonna try to stave that off as long as humanly possible. So, Jared, I want to get your thoughts. You know, you came up to press row yesterday. We were talking a little bit about the Titans. We had Charles on our show yesterday, and he talked about what he thinks the asking price at this moment might be to move up to the number 1 overall pick. So, given the way the picture has shifted this week with Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston signing in New York, who knows what's going on with the Cleveland Browns right now? How do you view where things currently stand with the Titans? And what do you think their willingness still currently would be to move out of that number 1 overall pick?
Well, I mean, they're telling everybody they want to move out of the number 1 overall pick. They keep saying they're open for business. They keep saying to, Schefter and whomever else will listen, they keep saying, yeah, we really, really, really like Cam Ward, but, and normally you don't do the but. If you really, 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 really like somebody, you usually just say, hey, we're going to take this guy, or you just don't say anything like Washington did last year, or Chicago did last year, or New York did with Zach Wilson when, again, San Francisco was trying to move heaven and earth to move up in the draft. So clearly the Titans like Cam Ward, but they don't love him. And when Charles said, the equivalent of 3 first-round picks, I went and did the math, and I thought back to what the Giants did last year when they called New England, and it was on Hard Knocks, and they basically said, what will it take for us to get to 3? Will a 1 next year be enough, and then more this year, or does it have to be multiples next year? Because that was what they didn't want to do, is they didn't want to spend multiples in 2025. So I think that if the Titans were to really want the equivalent of 3 first-round picks, I actually think if the Giants like Cam Ward, there is a deal to be made, which would be number 3 this year, their first-rounder next year, and their second and third-rounder this year, plus I say a second in 2027. I mean, it's so Joe Shane's not going to be there in 27, so unless he succeeds with Cam Ward. So I think they would be willing to make that move last year for Drake May. I just think here's the issue. I don't think the Titans love Cam Ward. I'm not sure anybody else really loves Cam Ward either. So when it comes to this haul of picks that they want, and they'll probably lower their asking price if they really want to trade it closer to the draft. But I just don't know if you don't love Cam Ward, maybe nobody else loves Cam Ward either. And I think that may be the situation they find themselves in.
Okay, so it sounds like you've had your mind changed a little bit, Jared, on just how the Titans view this. Am I reading that accurately?
Well, I mean, I think the Titans want to trade the pick. I just don't think that there's a taker out there unless it's the Giants for the pick. And the Giants, by signing Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, I mean, to me, that's insurance. That's not necessarily like now we're set at quarterback because we signed Jameis Winston for $4 million and Russell Wilson for $10 million. But it is, okay, if we have to go in the season with Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson, we can. The Titans haven't made any of these insurance moves, which makes it harder for me to believe that they wouldn't just sit and pick and take Cam Ward. But again, they keep telling everybody they're open for business. So, I mean, I took the Schefter report as like a Miss Cleo advertisement when he said that they really love Cam Ward, and it'll take even more to get Cam Ward. But I saw that, and all I could hear was, call me now, inside my head. So I guess they keep telling people that they're not sold on Cam Ward and they'd be interested in moving the pick. And that tells me that they really want somebody to call them and knock their socks off. And it also tells me that it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, it's interesting because I could see where you're going with that. And then I guess the natural follow-up question, if you're a Titans fan, is, all right, well, let's say they pull that off and the Giants move up and get a trade. Well, who in the world's playing quarterback for them next year? They're going to trot Brandon Allen out and play quarterback the first game next year?
Yeah, like why not at least have Jameis Winston? Like at least somebody who could play the position as a starter in theory.
Jameis Winston, Daniel Jones. I mean, I think there's a couple of options here, though, that, Cousins was freaking awful last year. I mean, when I did the quarterback board, I was stunned at just how terrible he was. I was like, okay, now I get why they benched him. But Cousins is out there. I guess he was spotted at a Chipotle in Cleveland yesterday.
He was.
And then Aaron Rodgers is still out there. And we know, obviously, Chad Brinker's with the Packers. And it seems like Aaron's going to the Steelers, but Aaron also hasn't signed with the Steelers. And so I wonder, like, hey, if the Titans kind of told Aaron and David Dunn, his agent, like, hey, sit tight. Let's see what happens here. Because the one thing that the Steelers won't do, sounds like the Steelers want to give Aaron Rodgers $20 million a year and not a penny more. The Titans could go to Aaron and say, all right, we'll give you 30 for 1 year. We pulled off this great trade. Now let's make a move with Aaron. But to your point, Joe, I do lean more with that analysis that the Titans haven't brought in an insurance policy. Surely they don't think Levis can start at quarterback for them no matter what. So I am a little surprised by that.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I thought it was. You threw me off, Robbie. I thought you were asking one next.
Sorry.
Also, you have also thrown me off with how much you shaved today. By the way,
I'm sorry.
I just want to throw that out there. It's a little bit. Yeah. So okay. So how about you, Jared, and your feelings on Cam Ward? I mean, I know Jared's film room has been just absolutely popping, here during this off season. But do you feel any better, worse, the same about him now than you did like a month ago?
So I would not take Cam Ward with the number 1 pick. And ESPN Radio, I guess, is doing like an ESPN Radio mock draft. And so they're asking hosts at each station to pick a player that their team, like that they would take or something like that. And I'm going to take Cam Ward in the ESPN mock draft just because I don't want to mess up the mock draft for everybody else. But if I was general manager of the Titans, I mean, it's harder to say, right? Because I still think the right decision would have been to go down the path of Sam Darnold. And I know people don't want to hear that, but if that was my opinion 2 months ago, why would that have changed now to go down the Sam Darnold path and then trade the pick? So with that being said, I mean, I think to myself, okay, if I don't pick Cam Ward at number 1, who would I rather pick? Do I want to pick Shedeur Sanders? No, I don't think he's very good. Do I want to pick Abdul Carter? Nope, he's hurt. Out. No, thank you. Doesn't work out at the combine. Doesn't work out at a pro day because he's hurt. See ya. Off the board. So, I mean, that leaves me with Travis Hunter, but he plays a position that I don't value with the number 1 pick. So, I mean, I see why they would take Cam Ward reluctantly. The thing I would say, though, is if I was a general manager reading the tea leaves behind an owner who just doing some chatting behind the scenes, it sounds like she's kind of checked out. Kind of sounds like she's just done with the Titans for whatever that means.
Not even wearing the Oilers jerseys anymore. What's going on around here?
I mean, it sounds to me like she's just not even paying attention anymore from what I've been able to gather, which is odd. But I just don't trust her. So if I was the general manager, even if I said to her, like, I don't like Cam Ward, but I'll take him because, we need a quarterback and it all aligns, but don't fire me when this doesn't work out. She's not going to do that. So I would not risk my career on Cam Ward in a league where you only get 1 shot now at GM. I don't understand why that is, but you only get 1 shot, and I would not risk my entire career on Cam Ward. Does he do things I like? Yes. But I just don't see how this team builds draft capital if they don't trade this pick.
So, Jared, Tennessee and Kentucky tonight coming up in the Sweet 16. Obviously, a massive game. We were talking earlier. If they get the win, it's probably the biggest win in Tennessee history here if they can get it. So what do you make of the matchup, and what do you make of the Vols' chances to avoid being swept by Kentucky this year?
I mean, I think the Vols are going to win. I don't know if I should, I don't know exactly what – I think that may be my heart pick as much as it is my head pick here. I just don't think that Kentucky – I think Kentucky's a Sweet 16 team. I don't think they're an Elite 8 team. I think the Vols are a legitimate Elite 8 team. Now, I don't know if the Vols are a Final Four team, but they might be. I think throughout the course of the year, Tennessee was a consistently better team than Kentucky, except for when they had to play Kentucky. So I'd say I guess I'm a little worried about that. You know, I had Matt Jones on the program yesterday, and I was kind of expecting like the old Matt Jones fireworks, talking trash about Tennessee and their fans and Kentucky. And I don't have any angst in my heart towards this Tennessee team. I'm rooting for Rick Barnes in a college basketball stratosphere of scuzzy coaches. I'm rooting for Rick Barnes, who seems like a good guy. You know, Matt Jones says that everybody in the college basketball world, Joe, you would know better about this than I would, thinks Rick Barnes is retiring at the end of the year. Well, I'd like to see the good guy get his moment in the sun here. So I guess I'll root for Rick Barnes in that regard. But I just don't dislike this Tennessee team. I will take no joy out of Tennessee losing the way that I did when they lost to Oregon State or FAU or those kind of programs. And when Matt Jones was on the show and he was saying the same things, I was like, man, this is a likable Tennessee team. So I'm rooting for Tennessee. I think Tennessee will win today. And then I think, you know, if Tennessee can get to the Final Four, I think it'll be the best thing that ever happened to Tennessee basketball and maybe the best state of the athletic department in the history of Tennessee athletics. So I'm happy for them, but you know, Kentucky has had their number this year. I don't believe this. You can't beat a team 3 times. I've seen that happen. I saw the Titans beat Jacksonville 3 times. So I'm not of the belief that you can't beat a team 3 times.
Well, 2 things. Yeah, Rick Barnes dunked on that yesterday. It doesn't mean it. Yeah, it won't end up happening. But he was pretty adamant yesterday that that's not happening. He thinks
all I saw was a quote on Twitter about how God's going to make that decision for him.
Yeah, there was a lot more to it, but yeah, I mean, he refuted it. But also, Jared, isn't this as simple as you hate Kentucky?
No, I actually was talking about this yesterday with Jones. Like, I don't have it. I mean, I don't look. Do I want Kentucky to do well? Probably not. But at the same time, like with Calipari not at Kentucky, it's not as fun to hate Kentucky anymore. And last night, Calipari had a typical Calipari meltdown, and it's not as fun to hate Calipari anymore. I just don't know. I actually kind of like Calipari now. I don't know what it is, but I just don't hate him as much. Last year when Kentucky lost to Oakland, I enjoyed every second of that. I listened to the post-game Kentucky show until like 3 a.m. with all those hillbillies calling in mad about Cal, knowing there was nothing they could do about it. I enjoyed every freaking second of it. Now, like, I have no feelings towards Mark Pope. I have no, Kentucky fans are always Kentucky fans, but I never hated Kentucky fans. I enjoy Kentucky fans. And so I got to tell you guys, like, maybe it's because I don't live in the city anymore, where as a Louisville fan, you're next to Kentucky fans every day. Maybe it's because, the way Louisville views things, Pitino's not there anymore, and he hated Kentucky, although now he loves Kentucky because he's a most disingenuous coach in the history of the NCAA. But I don't hate Kentucky as much as I used to, and I don't hate Calipari as much as I used to. And honestly, I kind of miss it. I kind of missed it.
Scale of 1 to 10, how much would you like to see Calipari call the Hogs down there in Arkansas? It's got to happen at some point.
I would love to see that. I have to tell you, last night, when I watched them melt down to Texas Tech, I did start to enjoy it. Like, it did start to give me my warm fuzzies about Calipari. And it was funny because Matt Jones said, you only didn't like Calipari because you're a Louisville guy. And I was like, that's not it.
Your Matt Jones voice is unbelievable.
I did not like Calipari at Memphis. What I think it is, and I equated this to smoking pot, and then I threw Jake Lyman under the bus, who I have no idea if he's ever smoked a pot in his life. But I was like, Jake, you would know more about this than I would. I smoke weed constantly. And I said, I was like, back 15, 20 years ago, like, smoking pot was bad. Like, Honey Badger smokes pot, bad guy. And now, like, again, I don't know how you guys feel. I couldn't give a rat's ass if someone smoked pot or not. And so I think that paying the players is kind of the same way. And everybody knew that Calipari was paying the players. I mean, John Wall and those guys are committed to Memphis. And then as soon as Calipari got the Kentucky job, they just all went to Kentucky. So I think there was like a sentiment of like, oh, Calipari pays the players. Bad guy. And now everybody pays the players, so who cares? I mean, Jeremy Pruitt's lawsuit's like, well, when I got there, they were paying the players, and I went to Philip Fulmer, and he said, all right, I'll handle it. And, I got fired for paying the players, but they were paying the players too. And it's like, who cares about paying the players anymore? So maybe that's why I don't hate Calipari anymore. I don't know. I just don't have the angst against Calipari. I was rooting for Arkansas going into the day, but then when I saw them blow the lead, I did kind of enjoy it. So make of it what you will.
Jared,
you
very
got
good stuff.
Rick Pitino. Your guy Rick Pitino was just room, board, tuition, and hookers.
Yeah,
I mean, so
there's that.
So
But we didn't know that at the time.
That's
and
true.
I will say this: when all that went down, that was kind of a moment for me where I was like, all right, guys, we can't make fun of Cal anymore. Like, Cal's actually never gotten caught doing this, even though it's obvious that Derrick Rose didn't pick Memphis because of their biometrics labs. So it is what it is. But then once we get caught with hookers, it's like, all right, man, it's hard to hate Calipari. But when Calipari was at Kentucky, I think there's like a certain arrogance Calipari had and a certain arrogance that Kentucky fans had. And then when Calipari kept losing, it became so enjoyable. Because I remember when they signed Cal to the quote-unquote lifetime contract, which really wasn't a lifetime contract, but that's what they labeled it as. And then the hillbilly politicians in Kentucky tried to get a law banning lifetime contracts. But it was like, I just so arrogant about how great Cal is, and he loses all the, and I hated it. And now it's like Cal's been humbled, and he's at his hillbilly school, Arkansas now, and he won't do the hillbilly thing and call the Hogs. And Kentucky's got their coach who's a Kentucky guy, and he seems fine enough. So it's just, we need some more villains.
There we go. Jared, thank you, sir. Appreciate you taking time to be with us today.
Gentlemen, have a good weekend.
You as well. Jared Stillman, our guest here on the program. We'll react to what Stilly had to say coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. This week's Nashville's Best Deal, Boom Boss Pizza and Watch Bar, just in time for the NCAA tournament. Score half off a $30 gift card and enjoy their award-winning pizza and handcrafted beverages. Visit them in Nashville, Spring Hill, or Murfreesboro. Visit thegamenashville.com/deals while supplies last. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keys are here with you on this Friday morning. We'll have Chris Jones from the Nashville Sounds coming up here in just a few minutes, which could be very dangerous for me, but we'll get into that a little bit later here in the program. Joe, your thoughts on what Stilly had to say on the Titans, Cam Ward, and his belief that the Titans are wanting to move out of number one and maybe don't love Cam Ward as much as we think they love Cam Ward. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, it's speculation, which Stilly specializes in. But I mean, look, the reality is some of these NFL guys have been putting this out there, and it does read to me like the Titans are wanting it out there, right? Like it's not like they can't talk to other GMs without involving that, but it does seem like there's this. I've seen it from Rappaport and Schefter. This, like, by the way, it's not over. They're not convinced. It's not cemented. Now, look. Could you love someone and I mean, we understand this is not Caleb Williams. We understand this is not Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow. So we already knew that it wasn't like, oh my God, they get Cam Ward. Oh, wow. What a lucky year to have the number one pick. We already knew that it wasn't that. And that, frankly, it looked like the Titans were almost like resolved to trade out of there. And then all of a sudden now you have all the serious, I mean, again, all the moves say they're drafting Cam Ward. I guess what I would ask is it depends on your definition of love, but could you still love him, believe he could be great, but still, to me, smartly be open to the possibility? I mean, I know that's kind of threading a needle, but again, go back to the beginning of this. We already knew that this was not one of those guys at the top of the draft where there's just no questions asked, and that it's already happened with the Titans that they seem to be going about things with one thing in mind, and now they seem to be going about things with another thing in mind. So basically, we're doing a lot of guessing of what they think, but I think it's the right thing to try to see what you can, keep your ears open and see if you can figure anything out. And I think ultimately it's going to end up with the Titans taking Cam Ward at number one.
So you don't think that the Titans have like handed Cam Ward a playbook yet? Like Joe Burrow got with Cincinnati. I'm like, here, just start studying this. Be ready by the time the OTAs come around.
Yeah, I don't think so, man. I don't think so. And look, like the Giants deal still laid out there, and that's just, to me, that's wild. I mean, that one would be like, that's, to me, easy. It's like, okay, go through a year like with Tim Boyle.
Well, look, I was stunned when Charles said 3 first-round picks are the value equivalent of yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, that's just I think that's where I agree with Jared as much as anything. Is like I just don't think anyone loves him that much. He's the best guy. So there's him and there's a gap. Whatever the gap is, Charles keeps saying it. There's Cam, there's a gap. There's Shedeur, then there's another gap. But how big is the gap between Cam and Shedeur, and just where does it start? Obviously he's starting behind a lot of these guys. So I just think that he's not going to be one of those guys that everybody that wants to send half the world for. And so you're going to end up being the team that takes him for better or for worse.
Coming up next, it is opening day for the Nashville Sounds. We are live out at First Horizon Park. It is a beautiful day out here at First Horizon Park. And we'll catch up with my guy, Chris Jones, coming up next, Senior Director of Marketing for the Nashville Sounds. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Friday morning. It is opening day for the Nashville Sounds. It is a beautiful day out here at First Horizon Park. And we welcome in my friend Chris Jones, Senior Director of Marketing for the Nashville Sounds. Christopher, good morning. How are you?
Morning, Roberto. How are you, good sir?
Doing awesome. Good to have you here with us. It's a beautiful day out here. It's crazy. You know, I was talking with some people here before the show started, you know, somebody who grew up here and spent a lot of time as a kid going over to Greer and just watching games over there. You know, there's kind of a nostalgia to it that you think about. And it's crazy. Like, I remember when this thing opened, this is the 10th year at First Horizon Park. It's nuts to think about that as somebody who grew up here.
Yeah, I didn't have quite as many grays in my beard.
Yeah,
I think when this opened, but yeah, like you hit on it. Like being born and raised here in Nashville, the Sounds are such a staple in this city's history. I mean, I remember growing up going to Greer, like you mentioned. I remember seeing Michael Jordan, the GOAT, not debatable by the way, playing over there. And you know, there's nothing better than coming to a ballpark here on opening day and getting a dog, beer if you can, and just sitting back and enjoying.
So wait, so you're an Alabama and a Bulls fan? Is that
no?
Can we get some Kentucky basketball in here too? Like,
yeah, at least I'm not a Kentucky basketball fan, Alabama football fan, right?
Yeah, we've seen a few of those.
So it's one of those things. Growing up here in Nashville, Joe, like you know, you can probably attest to this. I'd come home. One, I grew up in the Jordan era, so I was a Bulls fan, and then coming home from school, the Cubs still didn't have lights at Wrigley, so I'm dating myself a little bit. So I'd come home, Harry Carey be on WGN, so that naturally made me a Cubs fan. Was a Hawks fan until the Preds came here, and so it just was one of those things. I didn't know that I wasn't allowed to be a Packers fan, so that really throws the trifecta out a little bit. But yeah, that's the whole kit and caboodle.
So opening day here, this is obviously, you know, one of the unique things about baseball is like once it starts, it's go, go, go.
Yes,
I mean, it's go, go, go all the time. So for people that are coming out either today for opening day or going to be coming out here over the next few days, and I know there's another series coming up after this that I'm coming to against the Redbirds. What can people expect as they come out to the park for yet another year of Nashville Sounds baseball?
Oh man, it's well, we love our themes, right? A lot of great themes coming up this year. We got Star Wars, we've got Harry Potter, we've got an emo night, we got all kinds of stuff. A little something for everyone. So we love our themes. You know, Firework Fridays, you got Hit City Saturdays, Throwback Thursdays, all kinds of fun stuff. And it's a little bit of something for everyone. Doesn't matter if you're single and want to mingle, or if you're a family of three like yourself. And it's just a good time. It's hard to beat it in the city of Nashville. I know a lot of people have a lot of options, but we think for the dollar, there's nothing better than Nashville Sounds game.
Well, and just one quick thing to point out before I hand it back over to Joe. If you're wanting to come out tonight and you're maybe on the fence about it because Tennessee and Kentucky are playing tonight, there are plenty of TVs out here that'll have Tennessee and Kentucky on.
That was a point of emphasis for my digital coordinator yesterday. I said, please make sure everyone understands every TV except for the guitar will have that game on. So you will not miss a second of either Sounds game or the Tennessee-Kentucky match.
So, Chris, I just want you to know that 9 years ago, I won the mascot race as Reba McEntire. So I'm very, very proud of that. First of all, what about that aspect of things? You know, anything new there? And in terms of like the theme nights and everything, like, do you guys just sort of brainstorm things like that? Like, do you take fan submissions on different ideas? Like, how do you go about that?
So I don't know if you meant to do this or not, but it is actually Reba's birthday. My understanding it's Reba's birthday today. So I don't know if that was a
wow. I didn't know.
Look at you, man. Very intuitive right there. No, look, the beauty of minor league baseball is we can pivot, we can come up with fun ideas, we can try things that a lot of other leagues and teams probably can't for a number of reasons. So it's a little bit of everything. It's what you talked about. It's fans telling us some things they'd love to see. It's somebody in the office coming up with a wild hair idea and like, let's give it a shot and let's see if people like it. So it's kind of a combination of all those things.
One of the things that is so cool to me about coming here is, I mean, I'm looking out right now. There's the bandbox in right field. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff. There's all sorts of areas for whether you're bringing kids, whether you're bringing your family, whether you're having an employee night out with your work. Like there's so much to do here in addition to the baseball game. Like how much of a point of emphasis is that for you guys to really be a place where not only do you get baseball all summer long and into the fall here, but also this is a great place to bring people to come and just kind of fellowship together.
Yeah. Look, there's like we mentioned earlier, there's a little bit of everything for everyone, depending on your size of your group. If you want to do one of the 4 tops, my personal favorite is the best seat in the house. There's a little 4 top right by the bench, and coach actually will kind of interact with you a little bit. I don't know anywhere else you can get that. And then there's the bandbox is always a favorite, but there's Paradise Park down there that's got you get your own keg and all kinds of stuff. So there is a fun spot no matter what you're into, everywhere in this park. And like you said, with Bandbox, there is a lot of new food and bev options coming up. I don't want to spoil anything. I feel like you got to come to the park to figure out what that is. There's a rumor there may be a frozen espresso martini.
Oh boy,
just that's a rumor. I can neither confirm nor deny.
Rexrode, is that up your alley?
I mean, I'm not against it.
Make sure you drink 2 of those before you go to bed there, Joe.
By the way, so Reba's birthday, and yesterday was National Joe Day. Shout out to Joe Dubin for pointing that out. So we got National Joe Day yesterday, Reba's birthday. That sounds, I mean, that's pretty amazing back to back like that.
I heard that on their show yesterday. He made sure to mention it coming out of every break, I think.
Yeah, of course. So how about on the baseball side, the player to watch this year, Chris? Because obviously, people get into the team success, but of course, there's a lot of emphasis on prospects and just you get attached to certain players who are really moving up through an organization.
Well, and like added to that, like the partnership with the Brewers there. I mean, it's, this has been something that's been, kind of a long-standing thing there. So the importance, like, you and I have been out to Miller Park. It's a great place to go. Like just that. First off, the partnership between Nashville and Milwaukee.
I was thinking about this.
Very interesting thing.
Yeah, you got a major league baseball team in Milwaukee and a minor league hockey team, and then you flip it here. You got a major league hockey team and a minor league baseball team. So there's some sort of connection there. Yeah, Joe, there was scouts out here yesterday. They found this native kid from Mount Juliet that was doing a lap around the field, and it turns out he still got it. He was throwing home run balls back into the guys, and literally throwing it so hard and so accurate that their gloves weren't even having to move. So I don't know if that may be on the
saying
new
you still got it?
Still got it. I throw like a catcher. Some habits are hard to break, but there's a rumor that we could be signing a native Mount Juliet kid.
I like that. All right, last thing for you. I do want to point out, and we talked about this earlier, that I'm very glad that Alabama won yesterday. Otherwise, this would be a very, very depressing kind of tone here. For the interview. So now that they punched their ticket to the Elite Eight, as the resident Alabama fan here,
Roll Tide.
Are they going all the way? If they shoot like they did last night, they're going to be impossible to stop.
Look, I've said this to you in our group and some other folks. The thing about Nate Oates and his style and Alabama style, they're either going to beat the doors off of you or they're going to lose by 20. There's not much room in between. Makes for an exciting game. It's fun to watch as a fan. A little bit with my heart here. I do have them picked to win it all against Auburn in the final.
Oh, Iron Ball.
Oh boy.
I do. You'll be pleased to hear this. I do have Tennessee and Bama in the Final Four.
Okay, all right.
So
that's good.
But however, I think it's probably best for everyone around here if Kentucky wins tonight, because our GM's a big Kentucky guy.
Okay, all right.
So it's a win-win for me.
Okay.
Right? Either you are happy or our GM's happy. So that's kind of where I stand on that one.
Are you scared to death of what Joe threw out there earlier, that because they shot so well last night, they're just in for trouble tomorrow?
No, he's probably 100% correct. It's just one of those things where and Sears, as much as I love him, he's a gift and a curse sometimes. He's gonna keep chucking it no matter what. But then he'll miss 6 straight, and then he'll make 8 straight. And you're like, oh, okay, just keep chucking it.
That's right. Well, Chris Jones of the Nashville Sounds, our guest out here. Opening day today at First Horizon Park, and we're going all summer long here. I mean, that's, like I said, the beauty about baseball. Once it gets started, it's just game after game after game. You got plenty of opportunity through the season to get out here to First Horizon Park. Christopher, thank you, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you. I got one more thing. If you go out to the Nashville Sounds website under tickets, we've got ticket bundles. We've got a great deal right now. If you buy one of our 100 level seats, you get a $20 loaded value. So these things kind of sell themselves there. And then, Joe, I want to congratulate you. I don't know if you know it or not, but you are now part of the next big 3 of radio.
Yep.
With this show right here. So congratulations.
It just changed. The radio world just changed with Chris Jones coming on here, no doubt.
Well, thanks. Real quick though, we're not getting into Robbie's bachelor party. We don't have time for that. No recap. No box score.
I don't know what you're talking about. We sat on the beach and read books all day.
What happened? That was it. That's all we did. Thank you, sir. Appreciate
Absolutely.
You.
Thank you.
Chris Jones from the Nashville Sounds, our guest. Opening day in Nashville. You're not going to find better weather for opening day. It's awesome out here today. So get on out tonight to First Horizon Park to check out the Sounds, taking on the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp. We'll have the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up next. Teron Davenport will be with us at 8 o'clock. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
Glorious. Actually, he's not actually on a book page, is he? I just broke my
Figuratively?
own rule. Yeah. Yes, exactly.
That's what happens when you fart around like that. You just,
Farting A, man. You know?
It's so stupid. It's a terrible song.
It is that time of the day, time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. You can check it out every morning here on the program. Joseph, the floor is yours. I turn things over to you.
I'm actually not kidding. Like, and I guess I could attribute this to okay, dude, I seriously forgot what I was going to say. I was sitting here for a minute. I completely blanked out. And I'm like, I guess we could just call this my illness right now. I scarlet fever is overtaking me, but okay, now I remember. So I think there's always these complaints that come up quite often, and it's about media, you know. And you know, again, you know, I like to. I mean, I guess maybe too much. I defend media, but not always. But a big complaint, and it's come back up again this week, Robby, is of course with this just ridiculous back and forth between LeBron James and Stephen A. Smith. LeBron James, who, by the way, sorry, Chris, is the GOAT, not Michael Jordan. But that's just the basketball side. I still haven't listened to this whole interview with McAfee. I mean, I saw the part where he said like he's on a Taylor Swift tour. And I was like, that's actually pretty good.
That was pretty good.
That's not bad. But apparently you said it was pretty cringy. I feel like Pat McAfee has an incredible knack for making people really cringy when they are interviewed by him. Like, do we give him any credit for that?
He certainly pulled it off the other day.
But the complaint always comes back to, you know, like, why is media like look at what's happened to ESPN. They've had some really good well, they just got rid of Around the Horn, which I was never, you know, I was fine with Around the Horn. But like I was, I'm a huge fan of it.
Yeah.
But you know, the actual like news, the investigative show they had, even like the sports reporters, I really liked that. I like that more than Around the Horn. These things have all gone away, and it's basically just variations of people screaming at each other. Which I suppose, I mean, I guess you could look at our medium here, and it's sort of, even though we don't disagree too much, but I mean, in theory. Like, that's what we do. That's what Jared and I do. We just scream at each other, right?
That's true.
But people complain about this, and I agree. I hate it. But also, like, when it comes down to it, like, people are reacting to what people, like, will watch or listen to, you know? When it comes down to it, this is all a for-profit business. And so if something works, and like it or not, you know, you can hate Stephen A. Smith. I find him entertaining at times. I don't find him terribly like insightful, and in some cases, again, like the college hoops thing, he's talking about. He's not very informed. People tune in, man. People tune in. So the point being, if you don't like this stuff, you know, like, I mean, it's not done just because like ESPN just really wants that to be their format. It's because the numbers tell them to make them their format. So I guess really when it comes down to it, Robby, I'm just pawning the blame off on the consumer at large, on the fans, on the public. It's your fault.
My rant today is against you, the people, all of you.
Yes, exactly. Thanks a lot. But it does suck. I mean, I agree with the sentiment. Like, it sucks. It should be more balanced. And again, like, ESPN isn't the, you know, I mean, when it comes down to it, ESPN is alive and well because of its live sports inventory, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But those shows do well. And, you know, it kind of started, I mean, you go back to like, I mean, I remember the early days of cold pizza.
Oh, yeah.
And you started to get Skip on the Bayless on there, and then that just sort of became its own monster. People were like, wow, what are they going to yell at each other about now? I mean, I quickly got sick of it. And for the most part, I'm like, I mean, I like Skip Bayless, you know, his ridiculous LeBron takes that he has to double, triple, quadruple down on. But I mean, it's interesting too how he moved on, and that did not do well. Why is that?
Yeah, I
I mean,
don't know.
people don't like him, right? But it did well on ESPN.
Yeah, I think some of it's just as simple, and this is why, like, Major League Baseball just lost their deal with ESPN, right? And like, I think this is why that there's still, even in 2025, power with that brand, right? Like, it's not the same as it used to be. Like, it used to be when I was growing up. Like, if I wanted to learn anything about sports, like, I was turning on SportsCenter and I was turning on ESPN. And with your smartphone and everything else, there's so many more ways now to access that information. But I do think there's still power in being, that brand and that, the quote unquote worldwide leader in sports. Like, I think that there's cachet that comes with that. So I think that's probably part of the answer, is just the platform that they've created.
And look, I do think part of the answer also is, again, say what you will about Stephen A. Smith. He does command audience, I mean, and when he, gets into somebody, I'll give him credit for, like, he doesn't back down.
He doesn't.
And
He was going to swing on LeBron.
Yeah. But like, he'll go after whoever. And sometimes it's pretty freaking funny too, I mean, it's clear that, I guess if you flipped it around, like if Stephen A went and did some show at Fox with whoever and Skip had stayed at ESPN, I mean, maybe it just would have been the same results. Just like you said, ESPN just has a built-in advantage. But I do feel like it kind of shows us, like, Stephen A, and again, he just got some massive deal. Now it feels like it's like Stephen A and McAfee are like rivals there who are trying to get the bigger deal, I guess. I don't know.
Well, again, I said yesterday, like, I'm so, like, the Stephen A. LeBron stuff is so tired to me. Somebody on the text lines asked me, like, what about the LeBron interview was cringe for me? LeBron has been on this crusade for like a year and a half, 2 years, about how the sport is covered, and that they are like, they doesn't get covered the same way as other people. And the bottom line is, LeBron doesn't like criticism. That's what it all boils down to. LeBron doesn't like criticism. And look, I like LeBron. LeBron is responsible for some of my great memories as a sports fan, as Miami Heat guy. But LeBron, every now and then, has no idea, no concept of what he's talking about when it comes to some of these things. And I thought the McAfee interview was a perfect example of that. LeBron whines when coverage doesn't go his way, and that's what LeBron does.
Yeah, and it's been largely very fair. Yeah, no, I think he's totally out of his depth on that. Also, Evan just texted, Joe, LeBron is far from the GOAT of basketball, LOL. He's the GOAT of flopping only. Thank you for letting me know that you've never watched a game of basketball, Evan.
615-737-1025, our phone number. And again, I largely like LeBron, but he whines a little bit too much about the media nowadays. Now, if he wants to get Stephen A. Smith's face again, I guess I'd see that. That'd be funny.
Maybe they can, like,
see if Stephen A. Smith actually swings on him.
I mean, maybe they can get, like, Jake Paul involved or something, some dumb Netflix crap.
We'll have TD with us coming up next. We'll get into all things Titans with him. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
ESPN's Turon Davenport, Talking Titans, now on Robby and Rexrode on ESPN 1025 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
It is that time of the week. We head to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our man, Turon Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation Titans reporter, host of Talking with TD here on the program on Robby and Rexrode. TD, good morning. How are you doing?
Hey, good morning. What's going on? How are you guys?
Doing awesome, man. Appreciate you taking time to be with us. So, TD, I heard you and Stillman talking yesterday on the Power Hour. It was a really interesting conversation on the Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders front. And, we had Charles Robinson on yesterday talking about, what the potential asking price, at least at the moment, could be to move up, and mentioned like 3 first-round picks or the value of that. We'll see as to whether or not that actually happens here. But if you're the Titans and you're kind of looking at this, and all the signs seem to be taking a quarterback based on what they've not done at that position with their roster right now, like, how attractive should a trade back still be in your mind to them? And how much is it as simple as you guys need a quarterback, you got an opportunity to select one here and start to elevate your franchise and Cam Ward, just go do it?
Yeah, to me, the offer needs to be like Kerry Champion level attractive. Like, it has to be an offer that you just can't say no to. And I say that because this is a team that needs a quarterback. This is a coach that needs to show his worth. And I think it's the franchise that wants to allow the coach to do that. And then Cam Ward, by the way, is a pretty good prospect. So for me, it would take an awful lot to move off of it. I don't think the Titans should move unless they get a offer along the lines of what Charles Robinson said. Like, that's one where I'd be like, okay, you know what? Yeah, we might just have to make that move. But otherwise, I'm chilling. I'm a stick and pick.
Do you we had Stilly on earlier. I'm sure he said this to you yesterday too. Do you buy, I guess, the idea that this all shows that they don't necessarily love Cam Ward? If they loved him, it'd be over, and it would have been clear from all along. Meanwhile, it seems like they're making sure it's out there that they're still listening.
Yeah, listen, he needs to be somewhere like with George Lucas, Spike Lee, those guys, the storylines. Like, he has a very good ability to make up storylines. Look, them not coming out and saying, hey, this is our guy, or not coming out and saying, hey, we refuse trades or anything like that. What do they gain from that? Literally, what do they gain from it? Nothing, right? What do they lose if they do that? Well, you lose the opportunity where a desperate team would reach out to you. Like, I think what they're doing is fine. They're playing it kind of by the rules, right? Just keeping it coy and not devoting themselves to either direction, and keeping both doors open, which to me is smart business. Now, talking to Cam, they could tell him, hey, look, man, like, we really like you. We would like to make you a pick, but I don't see any reason why they should have to shut a door on anything.
So, TD, I want to bring up Brian Callahan with you because, I was somebody that at the end of last year would have loved for the Titans to just clean house. Like, if you're going to fire Brand Carthon, I probably would have liked to have seen them fire Callahan as well. Obviously, they didn't, so that part of it's irrelevant now. But if you draft Cam Ward, and let's say next season, you see a little bit of progress from Cam Ward, you're feeling good about it, but the win-loss total doesn't improve all that much based on where their roster is right now. Like, to me, what I don't want to see happen is Cam Ward get drafted, they go through a year with Brian Callahan, and then they immediately fire Brian Callahan, and Cam Ward's in year 2 going with another coach and learning a new system and doing all those things. We see that happen too often in the NFL. So how do you view the drafting of Cam Ward and what that could mean for Brian Callahan if that's the way they go?
So basically what you're telling me is you don't want to see what happened in Chicago happen here.
That is correct.
That's essentially, yeah. Right. And I agree with you. I think it's bad for business, right? And so, you want Brian Callahan to win. You want the franchise to do better. I think drafting Cam Ward is just simply going to help that, because, the one thing that I do see from Cam that kind of separates me from what I look at with Shador is the ability to make others better, right? I think Shador can kind of do that, but he's one of those guys that's going to, function within the system. He'll make some really good, accurate throws and keep things moving. Like I said yesterday, kind of like a high-end Ryan Tannehill to me.
Yeah.
But I think when you look at Cam Ward and the dynamic plays that he could make, not only off schedule, but within the structure of the offense too. I think that just opens up a lot more things for Calvin Ridley, for Bryce Oliver, for whoever they should draft. So I definitely think Cam Moore puts him in the right direction.
So TD, do you kind of on the other side of this, I mean, I expect him to take Cam Ward. It looks to me like it looks to me like probably some kind of deal to move Will Levis for a low round pick swap is probably likely. We did have Charles Robinson on yesterday talking about how like Cleveland and they're sort of some weirdness with what they're doing, and the quarterback, they have the private workout with Cam Ward. The Giants signed the two guys. I mean, it's still it doesn't necessarily end it for them, but then you have you got the Saints who have everybody at Cam Ward's thing. You have, the Steelers are there. We're wondering what the heck they're going to do with the position. Like, do you think there is anybody who like might actually throw like something significant to try to get this guy?
Well, I mean, a team like the Saints, the Steelers, they're going to have to do that in order to move up and get where they are. That would have to be a big time move, a king's ransom, so to speak, to move up to there. I think you look at it, the Browns, I don't think what they're doing is strange. Just look, they have the number 2 pick. If they decide to try to swap pick, it's important to work Cam out and see him and do all that. It's part of the process. So I think the Browns, they really hold the key to everything, because the Giants, why would the Titans trade with the Giants if they felt that, they can't get Shador or Cam, right? And the only way that they can't get one of the two is if, the Browns pick. So it's just a little bit jumbled up top, but I don't see either of them going later. Well, Cam, we know he's going 1, but Shador, like, I don't see him making it past like the Raiders at 7, to be honest with you.
So TD, I'm totally with you on pick 35 and how intriguing that could be for the Titans in terms of the idea of moving down there. I'm torn though, because it in some ways to me it's kind of similar to number 1. Like, you could move off number 1 and get some picks and stockpile your draft capital that way. At the same time, TD at 35, like, I'd love to trade back, but if there's a wide receiver or an edge rusher there, I mean, you brought up Landon Jackson yesterday, and I'm totally with you. Like, I think that guy is really, really good. Like, so
Right.
I guess what I'm saying is, like, I love the idea of trading back and picking up more picks. But if one of those guys there is there at 35, it's going to be hard for me if I'm the Titans to turn that down, I think.
Yeah. And I said Raiders at 7. I meant at 6. I know the Jets picked 7, so don't kill me, folks in the chat, whatever.
How dare you?
You're right. At 35, like, there should be an opportunity to get prospects that were predicted to be in the first round. And that's why those first 3 or so picks, like, they're always so hot, on day 2, because it's like, wait a second. Because the dust clears and they're like, hold up, man.
Yeah.
This dude dropped. Let me go get him, and I think, you saw the Tigers do that a couple years ago, when they moved up to get Will Levis. And we know they were attempting to move up towards the back end of the first round to get him, but they saw he was still there and they jumped up and they got him. And I think that's something that you'll see teams try to do. But to your point, like, there could be a prospect like a Landon Jackson, a Donovan Ezraku, like those types there. And if they're there at 35, I think you need to jump on them. But then the thing you got to weigh out is like, okay, so you got Donovan Ezraku, you got Landon Jackson, they're available. You got Kyle Kennard.
Yep.
How far back can you move to get him and still get some compensation? And if you can do that, what's the difference between the two? Like, can you afford to go from those guys to Kennard? And I think that's something else that they have to weigh out. And it's a process. But, I mean, you look at the edge defenders, like I said yesterday, outside of Max Crosby, for the most part, most of these guys are obtained with like a top 40 pick. So you almost have to, if you want to impact for one, you have to get them early. Day one, obviously, but then early day two.
TD, what's your read on the Abdul Carter thing? With the,
Great
like
question.
now all of a sudden no pro day and, talking about the
Yeah.
shoulder, et cetera.
Yeah, that's a great question. And, back at the combine, when that came, I remember jumping on Jared's show, on the Power Hour that Thursday after it came out. And I was like, you know what? If I'm him, I don't work out. Like, do you not have enough film to see that I'm an impact player? Do you not have enough? So I think really the big thing with him is they have to figure out, okay, did that injury happen during the year or did it happen during training? Because if it happened during the year and he played the way he did, all right, cool. You know what? We're just going to get that thing some time to heal. Stay off your feet, young man. And the shoulder will allow that to heal a little bit too. And when it's time to roll you out, we'll roll you out. But we'll get the benefit in the back end of the year. But if it happened during training, then it's like, okay, wait a minute. Is this enough to impact like his extreme get off, his athleticism, his ability to run plays down on the other side of the line of scrimmage? So it takes some balancing. The main thing is finding out when it happens.
Well, TD, thanks as always for being with us today here on the program. We are inching ever closer to the draft, thankfully, and we'll talk to you soon. Yeah,
for sure. I appreciate it. And if anybody gets a chance, check out Talking with TD. We did an HBCU edition. We had Alabama A&M offensive lineman Carson Vincent, who he was a combine standout and a Senior Bowl standout. And then, I like to leave no rock unturned. So we reached out to Langston University in Oklahoma, a D2 NAIA, HBCU, and we got Travis Martin, a DB who's drawing some attention. So definitely check it out.
Absolutely. Check that out. Talking with TD. TD joins us every Friday morning at 8 o'clock here on the program. Thank you, sir.
All right, for sure. Appreciate you guys.
Yes, sir. Teron Davenport with us on the program. We'll react to what TD had to say coming up next. Got weekend winners coming up at 8:30. All that ahead. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Tune in to Totally Hits 93.3 tomorrow as the Cats take on the Albany Firebirds. Pregame beginning at 4:30, kickoff at 5 o'clock, with coverage also available on the Totally Hits 93.3 app and at TotallyHitsNashville.com. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit FirstHorizon.com/get-it-all. Live out at First Horizon Park. It is opening day for the Nashville Sounds. They're taking on the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp tonight. You can check out that action starting at 6:20 in the pregame, 6:35 first pitch on 94.9 The Fan. So make sure that you're either tuned in for that, or as we discussed earlier with Chris Jones, come on out to the ballpark. You got baseball, you got great weather, and you'll have Kentucky and Tennessee on every TV screen out here. So make sure that you're all over that tonight as the Sounds open up their season. Appreciate TD for being with us in the last segment there. Joe, we spent so much time talking about the number one pick and the idea of trading back from that. 35 is really interesting to me because, as TD talks about, there's some guys seemingly every year in the draft that you think might go in the first round, that you look around and all of a sudden at the beginning of day 2 on the second round, they're there and they're available. And the Titans are obviously going to have one of those picks high in the second round where you could find a guy, whether it is a Landon Jackson, who's the edge rusher out of Arkansas, or a wide receiver. Like, do you love, I don't know, Emeka Egbuka? Does he fall out of the first round from Ohio State and he ends up high in the second round? Like, is he there for you? So there's guys that could be there that would be, I think, really tempting to pick and select if you're the Titans. And you have to weigh that with, number one, do you get an offer to move back from 35? If you do, then what does that look like? How do you weigh what that offer is versus, some of the players that could be there and are available? Because, Joe, if I'm the Titans, at some point here, you'd love to trade back and get more picks. It's just, what are you willing to sacrifice in order to do it?
Yeah, and who at 35, what player is there that some team behind you is like, gotta have that? I mean, there's plenty of possibilities, but that's what has to happen. So, and it's like drafts. A lot of people, look at drafts in terms of, you got this tier, this tier, this tier. Sometimes you have a huge, whatever, like second or third tier where it's like, in general, in terms of quality, if you had a third round pick, you're getting a similar, early third round pick. The quality of player isn't that different in terms of the overall evaluations from where you are in the second round. So yeah, if you can move back later in the second round, pick up a third, that'd be big. This team needs so many players, but also, sometimes there's the exact guy you want is right there. I mean, one thing they didn't do effectively under Rand Carthon was move back. Obviously they were moving up in these drafts. So it would be great to see the Titans effectively at some point in this draft move back, and get more. They've certainly talked about that, but like you said, like T said, it's like that has to, 2 to tango. So how does that situation come about? Also, I'd just like to see the Titans do what they said. And I know that, there's more signings to come, but the idea of at least addressing need enough so that you really can just be clear-minded on best player available.
And I say all that, and I'm with everybody else who wants more picks and more kicks at the can. You know what I'll take over all that, though? Make good selections with the picks that you got. If you end up not able to trade back and you end up with a franchise quarterback at number 1 out of this, and either a really, really good wide receiver or an edge rusher that can be impactful for you right away at 35 overall, and you get into the 4th round after that, and you're able to find somebody that can be an impact starter for you, regardless of the position there, I'll take that. Based on the way drafting has gone around here recently, Joe, I'll take that, even if it means not trading back and taking the picks.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's just, look, in general, it's a huge draft for the Titans. It's probably going to be a career defining draft. It's going to be a regime defining draft because of what you're doing, at the top. I mean, that's what we said about the draft ultimately 2 years ago. And the GM is gone. Not everybody's gone, but the GM is gone from that. And so if you're going to do this and you're going to end up taking Cam Ward number 1, that's your tenure. But in the meantime, the drafts overall, this team has. When's the last time this franchise had like what you would call a good draft? They were going back to Calipari and Kentucky's last, Sweet 16 trip, 2019. So
And that one was really good.
That was a fantastic draft, but like that's a long time, and that's probably as much as anything other than some obvious huge mistakes probably explains why they're sitting here at number one.
Yeah, there's no question about that. 615-737-1025, our phone number. We'll have weekend winners coming up next. Get into the NCAA tournament. A big night tonight for Kentucky and Tennessee. We'll pick that game. Preds in action tomorrow against Vegas. All that and more coming up. Tune in later tonight to 1025 The Game for Vanderbilt baseball as the Commodores host Arkansas. Pregame beginning at 6:45. First pitch at 7 o'clock. Coverage also available on the 1025 The Game app and at thegamenashville.com. This is Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063 The Game. Time for weekend winners here on Robby and Rexrode. Take your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. A quick standings update in the competition. Joe, after going 6-0 last week, I had all the momentum in the world, and you thought Robbie's really figuring things out here in the competition. So how did I follow it up? Well, I'm glad you asked. 0-6 for me this week. 0-6. 6-0 to 0-6. Truly horrendous. Quite frankly, this is an awful week for us in the competition. I went 0-6. Rexrode went 2-4, did get his lock. Nick went 2-4 and did not get his lock, which brings the overall standings. I'm still in first, miraculously, 16-14 overall, 3-2 on my locks, 19 points. Rexrode also has 19 points, 15-15 overall, 4-1 on his locks. Keyser 13-17, 2-3 on his locks, good for 15 points.
I can assure you that the gap is closing.
That man could be very rich at some point. We'll see what happens on the Jeremy Pruitt lawsuit front as well. We begin with Kentucky and Tennessee tonight in the Sweet 16. Tennessee, a 4.5-point favorite on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Joe, I felt strangely confident about this game all week long, and it makes me incredibly nervous as a Tennessee fan. But I'm going with it. Give me Tennessee minus the 4.5 in this matchup against Kentucky. I felt good about it all week, which may be a horrible sign, but that's where I'm going. Tennessee minus the 4.5. Joe Rexrode, your selection.
Yeah, it's a quick answer for me in the affirmative there too. Certainly Kentucky can win this game, but I think the Vols are going to figure some things out defensively, and I just really like where they are offensively right now. Look for Igor Milicic to get some big shots tonight. He kind of got his mojo back a little bit last weekend, and I think he can be a problem for Kentucky when Tennessee has the ball. We focus on those guards and their shooting, but I think watch out for Igor tonight. I like the Vols.
Nick Keyser, your selection. Tennessee favored by 4.5.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Vols too. A little bit of taking this personally after having a poor outing in the regular season. Yeah, I'm feeling good about the Vols too. I mean, this isn't a good sign for the program if all three of us have a clean sweep. I don't know what our record is when all three of us pick Tennessee, but be wary, folks.
The Predators taking on the Vegas Golden Knights tomorrow. By the way, Predators officially eliminated from postseason contention last night, Rexrode. So I know some breaking news there. So Preds taking on Vegas tomorrow. Joe, your selection in the matchup at Bridgestone Arena.
Yeah, they're rising up with some rando wins lately, but I'll go with the Knights.
Keyser, Vegas, and the Preds tomorrow at Bridgestone.
I'm putting 8 on black and going Vegas.
Give me the Preds, baby. Preds going to win tomorrow against the Golden Knights. They've the playoffs are missed. They actually had a great – if you're rooting for the tank, they had a great night last night. They lost. Buffalo won. Philadelphia won. It was a fantastic night for the Predators last night if the tank is all you care about right now. But I think the Preds mess around and win this game on Saturday. Jonathan Marchessault plays with a little bit of pop to him tomorrow, and the Preds get the win. We move to the individual portion of the program. Nick Keyser, your first individual selection.
Yeah, I'm going to head over to number 1 Auburn taking on Michigan. Auburn is a 8.5-point favorite in this one. Give me the Tigers, and I'm going to lock down on this game as well.
We're going Auburn minus the 8.5 against Michigan and locking down on that. Joe Rexrode, your first individual selection.
Disrespect for the Big Blue, man. Disrespect for the Big Blue. Well, I'm going to go tonight also. Purdue-Houston in Indy. Houston minus 8.5. I think Houston's going to win the game. I do think Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, and Purdue will make it closer than some people think. I think they will cover, so give me Purdue.
I also have Purdue covering plus the 8.5 against Houston, so give me the Boilermakers plus 8.5. Rexrode, your second individual selection.
All right, we're going to the Elite Eight. Texas Tech, incredible comeback win, down 13, 4.5 minutes last night, ruining the dreams of Tyson Chicken Nation and John Calipari in Arkansas. But now it's Florida, and Florida just wiped the floor with Maryland last night. Florida's minus 6.5. Give me the Gators. Make it my lock. They are going to win this game going away.
Well, I also have Florida minus the 6.5 against Texas Tech, but I will not log down on it. Keyser, your second individual selection.
Yeah, I know, Joe, and you just talked about this, but I also had Houston winning, but I'm going to pick Purdue to cover.
So going with Purdue plus the 8.5 against Houston. Give me, as we begin our third individual selection, give me the Florida Panthers minus 1.5 against Utah. Utah has been struggling. They got absolutely smoked last night by Tampa Bay. 8-0 was the final. And now in the second half of a back-to-back tonight, you get a date with the reigning Stanley Cup champions. I'll take Florida minus the 1.5 against Utah and make it my lock. They're going to hammer the Utah Hockey Club tonight. Nick Keyser, your third individual selection.
Going back over to the NHL as well, Robbie. I'm going to go with the fighting Dante Fabros. The Columbus Blue Jackets are minus 1.5 over the Vancouver Canucks. Vancouver also kind of fighting and struggling currently, but give me Columbus.
Going with Columbus minus the 1.5 against the Vancouver Canucks. Joe Rexrode, your third individual selection.
All right, we're sticking with the Elite Eight, and we are Alabama Duke. Duke minus 6.5. Alabama put on an incredible show. I'd love to see Alabama win this game outright. I'd love to see Alabama cover and make it a great game. Man, I just think you're gonna regress a little bit shooting, and you're not gonna beat Duke unless you shoot the lights out. Give me Duke minus the 6.5.
So going with Cooper Flag and the Duke Blue Devils minus 6.5 against Alabama coming up in the Elite Eight. Nick Keyser, your final individual selection.
Yeah, I hate to be going over everyone's picks too, but look, there's not a whole lot to pick from, I guess. But yes, I'm going with Duke as well over Alabama. Alabama had 25 threes, but I think they slowed down.
So going with Duke against Alabama. Joe, your final individual selection.
Okay, we're going to women's basketball Saturday. Tennessee in the Sweet 16, taking on Texas. Did not go well earlier this year. Texas, excuse me, minus 7.5. I'm not sure if Kim Caldwell's team is going to win this game outright. I guess I'll cop out on that, but I do think they're going to cover. Give me Tennessee minus the 7.5. I am just an absolute GBO homer today.
Just going Tennessee.
GB Joe.
Tennessee plus the 7.5 against Texas. Give me the Detroit Pistons plus 5 against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cleveland, obviously, outstanding all year long, Joe. I think the Pistons cover tonight, and they win. Plus the 5 against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Your thoughts on your beloved Detroit Pistons when you're not watching the Golden State Warriors?
Wow. Yeah, it's nice that they finally have a good team. Cade Cunningham has been banged up. Is he playing tonight? Because if he's not playing tonight, I hate your pick and it's too late.
If he's not playing tonight, I bet the line would probably not be only 5.
Yeah,
but
you would not.
I don't know. We'll see.
You would think so. He's had a little calf thing. I'm sure he's coming back for this one. But yeah, they're pretty good, man. They're fun to watch.
They are fun to watch. We'll take your thoughts on Tennessee and Kentucky. We'll get more into that matchup coming up next. Your final thoughts on the Titans and Cam Ward, what we've learned on that front this week, and how open other teams could be to moving up to number 1. We'll get into all that coming up next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in. Final segment of the day. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Got some tickets to give away to see Jim Jeffries at the Ryman Auditorium coming up Friday, April 11th. Be caller number 3, 615-737-1025. You'll win a pair of tickets to see Jim Jeffries at the Ryman Auditorium coming up on Friday, April 11th. We are live at First Horizon Park, opening day for the Nashville Sounds. They're taking on the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp, one of the great names in sports. Tonight, first pitch at 6:35 here at First Horizon Park. Chase and Big Joe have arrived. They're both stretching and warming up in the bullpen. A lot of stretching going on out there, so they'll be on just after us here in a few minutes. Joe, a massive one tonight between Kentucky and Tennessee. As we discussed earlier in the program, I think you can make a pretty good case. I think a pretty obvious case that if they get this win tonight, it's the biggest win they've had in the history of their men's basketball program. So what do you make of the opportunity for Rick Barnes, Zakai Ziegler, and the Vols? And what do you make of what you know of the makeup of this team about their ability to rise to that challenge and meet it tonight against Kentucky and avoid being swept in all 3 games this year by your rival?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think it's a special team, but it's a special program. And Zakai Ziegler, just, you can't say enough about him. I will plug that I wrote about him today in The Athletic, by the way. But I spent a lot of time around him last weekend because I knew I was going to write a story about him. And just, man, he's, Grant Williams was special at Tennessee too, obviously. And Grant Williams, went on to play in the NBA. He was the player who changed that program.
Yeah.
But I would argue that Zakai Ziegler represents the Rick Barnes era at Tennessee more than anyone. And I think that's true even if they lose tonight. But again, you get this one. I'm with you. I think it's the biggest win in school history. Now, if you're a Kentucky fan, you lose this game, you also say that. You say, hey, congrats. You guys beating us at Sweet 16 is the biggest win in your history. Ours are all the national championships we've won. So enjoy your little basketball success, Vols fans. I mean, but I would get them ready, Kentucky fans, because I just think Tennessee's a better team. And I understand that Kentucky won both games, but this is one of those. I agree with everybody who says, this whole you can't beat a team 3 times. That gets disproven plenty, but it's usually when the team that does it the 3rd time is just clearly better than the other one. I don't think that's the case. And I think Ziegler, I think that Tennessee players over the years, I mean, Rick Barnes, they have really good relationships with Rick Barnes, and he's one of the good guys in sports, and they've really wanted to win for him. And I think sometimes that's even been a bit of a detriment maybe in some years. But this year, I think they want to win as much for Ziegler as for him too. The guy is the passion, the intensity, just everything he does. He's not going to play in the NBA probably. I mean, he's just too small, But man, I think he's one of the all-time great Tennessee athletes. And I know that's a big statement, but he should be remembered that way. And hopefully, for him and Vols fans, you got another week after this of celebrating him.
Well, I said it earlier, they've had so much success under Rick Barnes, and they've been a great team in the regular season now for several years. They've had some postseason success, right? Like they've gotten to Sweet 16s. They've gotten to an Elite 8, another chance to do that tonight if you're Tennessee to get back to the Elite 8, which has not happened very often in this program. It's happened twice. So you've got an opportunity to add to that tonight. But I do think, it would be a shame if you got through the entire Rick Barnes era with how much success that they've had, and there was never a Final Four to show for it. Like this team's, I think, is as good as any as they've had, and this team has got a chance to finally be the one to break down the door and do that. As you pointed out, Joe, it's not going to be easy. You've got Kentucky tonight, and if you are able to get by Kentucky, which is no given, you've got probably Houston coming up after that. We'll see. We'll see what Purdue has to say about that, but probably Houston coming up after that. So, if Tennessee gets through this weekend, Joe, they will have earned it. And what a moment that could be for the program if they're able to do it. If we're sitting here on Monday talking about their first trip to the Final Four.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're a Vols fan, maybe you'd love it to be Purdue, or maybe you'd hate it to be Purdue because you face Purdue in these.
Get Purdue out of here.
Yeah, but I mean, look, if Purdue somehow does pull off this magical upset tonight of Houston, well, I like the Vols in that game. I do. There's no Zach Edey to deal with those guys, but it's probably going to be Houston. I think it's going to be Houston and Tennessee. If that's a game, I think it's the best two defensive teams in college basketball. You could throw St. John's in there too, but it would be an absolute. I mean, talk about just grueling, grinding game. A little different than some of the games we saw last night. But yeah, look, I think the Vols have this experience, and now that they have Chaz Lanier, again, he's not Dalton Connect. It's not the same thing, but he is so confident and so quick getting that ball out of his hands and shooting at such a high clip. It's a heck of a weapon for them. Then you have Gainey and Ziegler making shots too. It's their offense has continued to progress here, and that I think that is the difference maker for this weekend.
On the Cam Ward front, Joe, we've got obviously the conversations that we've had about the draft picks that they've got and the price that Charles Robinson threw out there yesterday as to whether or not they could be a team that could fetch one of those huge hauls, right? Like Charles Robinson threw out 3 first-round picks as a potential asking price yesterday. To me, I still have a tough time believing a team is going to offer something like that with the Titans here. But as we head into the weekend here and more information to follow this weekend, where do you think things currently stand with the Titans? Is it as simple as Cam Ward's their guy and that's all there is to it? How much willingness do you think there is right now to really try to be aggressive here and get teams to offer a huge return that they're willing to pounce on?
Yeah, well, I don't know what I don't know what they can do to do that. I mean, does somebody out there look? For whatever I know, the Saints are like, look, we have to have Cam Ward, and we're going to do whatever we have to do to get Cam Ward. And so, I think if you're the Titans, you'd love to have the opportunity to field offers that are actually so good that you would consider moving out of there. And I mean, again, like their quarterback signings this offseason suggest that either they are just resolved to take him or that they just, like they at this point, like they don't think they're going to get any kind of offer like that,
Yep.
So, I mean, as much as I love the TD, little fantasy land that we sometimes make up here on this station. I mean, I do think that there's a difference between, oh my God, this is the guy, and there's just no question we're so lucky that we can take this guy, and well, I guess we should take this guy.
Yeah. Real quickly, Albert Breer putting it out there that Titans working out Cam Ward today. Brian Callahan, Borgonzi, Chad Brinker, Dave Ziegler, Nick Holtz, and Bo Hardigree all there for Cam Ward's workout today. So we'll see what that all means when it's all
He
said
must be
and done.
sick of those guys.
He must be. That does it for us today. Chasing Big Joe coming up next, live from First Horizon Park.